Have you ever felt abandoned and hopeless? Stay until the end of this video to discover how a mother transformed pain into a miracle that will deeply inspire you. I got laid off, and while helping an elderly woman, her strange words surprised me. I was laid off, and on my way home, I helped an elderly woman who had fallen down. Touched by my assistance, she insisted on inviting me to her house. Little did I know that her thankfulness would lead to an unexpected offer to marry her niece. Stunned by this sudden turn of events, I had no idea that this unforeseen proposal would change the course of my life forever. Hi, I'm James. I used to work full-time at a grocery store, and guess what? I just got laid off. The store has been struggling financially for a while, so they decided to cut costs by laying off several of us. So there I was, suddenly without a job. I was riding my bike home feeling pretty down. I didn't even have the energy to cook, so I thought I'd grab a burger instead. I took a little detour down a quiet side street. Just as I was about to reach the burger joint, I saw an elderly lady sitting on the ground. "Are you okay?" I asked her. I jumped off my bike and rushed over. It turns out she had taken a spill and hurt her leg. She couldn't get up by herself and was very distressed because there was no one else around to help. "I'm sorry to bother you, but could you lend me a hand?" she said. Without something solid to grab onto, it was a real struggle to rise. "Ouch," she exclaimed. Despite showing pain, she managed to hobble until I could help her stand up. I quickly gathered her scattered groceries, making sure nothing was damaged. Thank God nothing seems broken or squashed. "You're a true hero. Thank you so much." As we conversed, I finally took a good look at the elderly lady's face. "Wait, aren't you the lady who worked at the store?" Her words jogged my memory. She was a regular customer at the grocery store where I worked. Perhaps recognizing a familiar face eased her, as relief washed over her features. She tried to take her grocery bags, but it was evident she couldn't manage them. I asked if someone could pick her up, but unfortunately, there was no one available. Fearing she might stumble again, I opted to carry her bags and escort her home. "I'm terribly sorry, James." "Thank you." She clung to my arm as we proceeded slowly together. "If you can guide me to a handrail, I'll be fine," she said. From here, "Thanks for helping," she kept apologizing. I reassured her with a smile that it was no trouble at all. "You're really kind. You always serve customers with a smile at the store, which makes me very happy." Although I appreciated her kind words, I felt a bit conflicted. That feeling turned into a faint laugh. "You seem a bit down. Everything okay?" She looked at me curiously, occasionally glancing at my face. "Well, actually today was my last day at that store," I responded. "Oh dear. Were you transferred or did you find another job?" she asked. I honestly told her that I'd been laid off. As we chatted, we arrived at her house. It was a slightly large single-family home with stylish flower pots on both sides of the walkway leading to the entrance, with garden lights illuminating our path. We walked slowly towards the front door. "You can put everything down here. That bag must have been heavy." "I'm really grateful that you stopped by." "Thank you." There is a step leading to the front door, and the thought of her possibly falling inside concerned me. "If you don't mind, I can carry it inside for you." "Oh, please go ahead." The elderly lady responded with a pleased look. "Well then, I might just accept your kind offer." After finishing carrying the bag, she offered me some tea as a token of appreciation. Just then, her cell phone rang. "Oh, it's Jane. Please excuse me for a moment." She apologized to me and took the call, updating the person on the other end about the situation. "No need to rush. Could you bring some lunch?" she asked. Yes, that sounds good. "Thanks, dear." She hung up the phone and said that Jane, her granddaughter, would be home soon. Hearing that, I felt relieved and thought about leaving. Jane is bringing lunch. It's getting late, and she said she's getting lunch for you too. I think she's already picked it up from the deli. "Please, could you at least accept this from us?" she pleaded. Hearing her, I hesitated about what to do, but I decided to graciously accept her kind offer. They invited me to sit, and we made small talk until Jane returned. The elderly lady began talking about Jane. Jane's parents had died in a car accident when she was still young. Unfortunately, the couple was both involved in the accident, so since then, it had just been the two of them living together. Jane has grown up, but she always stays with her grandmother, always worrying about her. She said it was clear how caring and gentle Jane is, always putting her grandmother first. Every day after work, she goes straight home without any detours. In the end, the elderly lady expressed concern that Jane wasn't dating anyone and wished she'd think about her own happiness soon. She probably can't leave the house because she's worried about me. She mentioned, "You know, I'd love for a kind person like you to marry her." Oh, speaking of which, would you consider marrying my granddaughter? She's a truly wonderful and quite intelligent girl. This turn of events was absolutely unexpected. Receiving a marriage proposal suddenly threw me off, and the tender feelings I'd felt earlier flew right out the window. But it made me think, is being offered a marriage proposal a common thing in the service industry? I've been approached with lines like, "How about I be your daughter's girlfriend?" at the supermarket before, and I've heard my female coworkers say, "I want you to be my niece's girlfriend." It's always awkward when someone says that. All you can really do is laugh it off. Suddenly, I heard someone coming in through the entrance. I figured Jane must have returned and got up from my seat. As I turned toward the door, there she was, just entering the room. "Hi, I hope I'm not bothering you," I said. "I'm so sorry for the trouble. It seems my grandma has been in your care." "Thank you so much." She looked apologetic, but I was captivated by her appearance. Jane was in her office uniform, her hair pulled back, and she had notably fair skin and bright eyes. She had a gentle vibe, seeming like such a kind soul. I just kept bowing my head slightly, losing my words in front of her. The elderly lady turned to Jane, starting to chat away with a happy gleam in her eyes. "Welcome home. This gentleman here is the cashier from the grocery store I always visit. I'm so glad such a kind soul was here to help me out." "So, Jane, what do you think of him?" the elderly lady asked. "He's genuinely a great guy. Seems like Grandma brought home a potential boyfriend for you," she commented. The elderly lady placed her hand over her mouth, her face beaming with joy. "Seeing how you are, Jane, he could be your future husband." Upon hearing that, I was taken aback, wondering if her earlier comment was really just a joke. Of course, Jane was just as surprised and flustered. "Grandma, what are you saying? It's rude to say that about someone I've just met," she apologized. "Oh, dear, I've met him several times before." I couldn't help but chuckle. "You two really seem close." Jane, with an apologetic look, thanked me for the day and handed me a packed lunch, knowing she had bought one for me. I gratefully accepted it. Then, the elderly lady asked why I wasn't eating it now. Jane intervened. "I don't think that's appropriate for him." I decided to decline her offer. I expressed my gratitude, and Jane and I headed towards the entrance. As I put on my shoes, I looked back and saw the elderly lady limping over to send me off. "Thank you so much. I'm sorry for keeping you up late, and I apologize for not expressing my gratitude properly. Feel free to visit us next time." "No, not at all. Thanks for the lunch." Feeling warm-hearted by their kindness, I interpreted her words as polite social etiquette, but they still warmed my heart. Just as I was about to open the door and leave, something happened. "That's right. If it's not too much trouble, could you come over again tomorrow with this leg? I might not be able to manage it." The elderly lady was speaking. Jane seemed confused upon hearing what she said. "That's too much, Grandma. You're acting weird today. Are you okay? Didn't you hit your head? Let me check if you have any injuries." "I didn't hit my head at all. It's just my foot that hurts." Jane seemed genuinely concerned, checking Grandma's head for any injuries and asking if anything else hurt. With what the elderly lady had asked me, I was surprised too. Although I'm jobless anyway, and I don't have any plans for tomorrow, if she needs help, I have plenty of time. "Should I come tomorrow?" I asked. "Only if it's not a bother." Jane hesitated, apologizing, but in the end, we agreed. I'd visit in the afternoon the next day. The following day, I went to the elderly lady's place. "Thank you so much. You're a lifesaver." While I had the elderly lady sit on a small chair, she taught me how to care for the garden. After all, we both enjoyed this moment. But during that, I heard an interesting story. Currently, Jane is working full-time in an office, but apparently, she's always dreamed of opening a cafe. Since she was little, she even graduated from culinary school during her college days and had experience working part-time in eateries. But in the end, she chose to be an office worker. Even if she were to own her own cafe or work full-time in one, she'd be working from morning until late at night, but she definitely still wants to open a cafe. The reason the elderly lady mentioned me as a potential spouse for Jane was because she thought if there was someone skilled in customer service, she could start her cafe confidently. Plus, she genuinely felt that Jane and I might get along well. The next day, after hearing that, I went back to the elderly lady's house after replanting some flowers. There was some space left, so I decided to buy more plants to fill it. It was Saturday, and it seemed Jane had the day off, which surprised her quite a bit. "Oh my God, Grandma. Are you asking me to come again today? I hope it's not too much trouble," I apologized. Seeing me, Jane immediately looked at me intently, and I briefly explained the circumstances of my visit today. After planting the additional flowers and watering them, Jane kindly offered me something. "How about taking a break and sitting on the porch?" The three of us sipped our coffee, and then the elderly lady cleared her throat softly. "Jane, I really want you to achieve your dreams soon." "What?" I asked. "What do you mean?" Jane tried to play it off with a tight-lipped smile. "I don't want you to hold back just for me. I don't want you to stop for me. I know you're still planning a lot of things." The elderly lady revealed that she knew how Jane secretly jotted down numerous notes in preparation for her dream. It would be tough to do it alone, but maybe with someone else's help, it would be easier. "James, you're great with customers. How about getting some help from him?" "Oh, Grandma, you can't just say things so easily. I've met someone before at the supermarket, and I've heard my female coworkers say, be the girlfriend of my niece. It's always awkward when someone says that. All you can really do is laugh it off." "James, I love the way you handle your customers. You'd be a great partner for Jane," said the elderly lady without missing a beat. She made both Jane and me chuckle. "Oh, Grandma, you always act wild on your own," Jane playfully remarked, and the three of us laughed, lightening the mood for a bit. But soon after, Jane's expression changed, and she seemed deep in thought, biting her lip. "You know, maybe Grandma's right. Maybe now's the time to start," Jane murmured as she spoke to herself. But Jane mentioned she would reflect on it for a day. Then, the following Sunday, I went over to the elderly lady's house again. It seemed her leg was improving, so I thought of making that day the last day of taking care of her. While working on the garden with the elderly lady, I was approached by Jane asking, "Can I talk to you for a sec?" She had prepared coffee on the porch, and in her hand, she held a notebook. It was a little embarrassing, but could you take a look? She handed over the notebook she had been gripping tightly. Flipping through a page, it was filled with writing. Surprisingly, every page was like that. There were drawings of an ideal cafe's exterior, food illustrations, and tons of recipes. "This is amazing. I've been thinking about opening a cafe. I really want to do what I love." Jane, looking a bit shy, said this with her eyes sparkling. When Jane thought about doing it on her own, she was worried about being completely tied down to the business and also concerned about her grandma being home all by herself. However, she felt that if someone could be with her, it might ease some of that stress. Moreover, Jane mentioned she had seen me working at the grocery store and recalled that I had good customer service skills. "If it's not too much trouble, could you join me?" Jane asked. I know it's a bit shameless of me to ask, but the idea of me becoming a cafe employee wasn't something I had taken too seriously. I never expected her to actually ask, but seeing Jane's passion in her and my own desire to work in customer service again, combined with my own need to find a new direction, made me seriously consider her proposal. My urge to try something different sparked something inside me. "If you're okay with me, let's do this together." I held out my hand to Jane. Seeing this, Jane looked surprised but gave a joyful smile. We then firmly shook hands. She must have been nervous asking me. "Oh, thank goodness," she exclaimed, shaking my hand vigorously. She was genuinely happy. "Shall we open up our own cafe?" she asked excitedly. "Let's go for it." I matched her enthusiasm and responded cheerfully. From that day on, Jane and I exchanged contact information. We communicated through emails and discussed things at home. Together, we looked at vacant store spaces and consulted with contractors. Jane steadily progressed with the preparations, and I supported her throughout. In addition, I began a morning part-time job until the cafe was set up. Although I had some savings, I thought it would be a good idea to earn a bit more for daily expenses since I had the time. 6 months later, the cafe opened. We found a perfect little vacant shop, and with some renovations, we were ready to start. On the opening day, the place was bustling with neighbors, friends, and people who had seen our flyers. After closing on the grand opening day, they held a celebratory gathering with the elderly lady joining in too. Thank you, James, for making this dream come true with me. No, I should be the one thanking you. See, my intuition about you was right. It must be fate. Honestly, fate and destiny might be more real than I thought. The day I was laid off from my job, I helped an elderly lady and met her granddaughter Jane. Now I'm working with Jane to open her dream cafe. You see, James, it wasn't in vain, right? Maybe that day you were feeling down thinking about why you've been working all this time, but now your warm hospitality is shining. It all had a purpose, and of course, it's also because you're such a good person, right, Jane? Grandma found a keeper, didn't she? Jane and I exchanged shy smiles. Then, the elderly lady added, "It reminds me of the old days," looking at Jane's parents. Jane was taken aback by those words and looked at her grandmother's face. "Jane, you look like your mom and have a fine charm like her. James, you have that gentle touch just like my son." Jane was so young back then that I don't think she remembers, but you see, this is where Jane's parents used to have their shop. Hearing that, both Jane and I exclaimed, "What a surprise." It turns out Jane's parents used to run a coffee shop right at the spot. The elderly lady realized it when she came to see the store after renovations were finished. She was so shocked that she was speechless. When she got home and went to her room, that's when her emotions finally caught up and she broke down crying. She thought about telling Jane right away, but decided to keep it quiet until the store officially opened. She wanted Jane, who was so passionately chasing her dream, to be able to build the store freely without any disruptions. But as the interior progressed steadily, the elderly lady was even more astounded. Jane's tastes were just like her parents. Whether she told earlier or not, it would have been the same. And then there was the bank money she gave Jane as startup funds. It turns out it was the life insurance money from Jane's parents that Grandma had carefully saved just for Jane. The elderly lady, with teary eyes, said that she's sure Jane's parents would be delighted to have been able to support Jane's dream. Remember how James proposed the idea of using those sunflowers in the shop? He said they really fit Jane's style. Interestingly, my son once told Jane's mom the same thing. It's kind of eerie, like it's more than just chance. Maybe it's fate. As I listened, I was overwhelmed with emotions I'd never experienced. Did I make it too sad? I asked upon hearing this. We all managed to smile through our tears. Then, out of nowhere, she suddenly exclaimed, clapped her hands, and leaned in eagerly. "Hey, you two got something important to talk about? Anything you want to share with your old grandma?" Jane and I glanced at each other, puzzled as the grandma chuckled, making both of us blush. "Oh dear, am I too early? Haven't you spilled the beans yet? I've known for a while." You know, with that, the elderly lady burst into laughter once more. "Well, I'll just leave you lovebirds alone." She grinned as she headed towards the back room. Left alone, Jane and I exchanged awkward glances, sharing a shy smile. But this was the moment. It was now or never. Would you, like to? And that's when our relationship officially began. Time flew, and our cafe, backed by everyone's support, flourished. Our hearty whole grain bread and veggie-packed breakfast sandwiches became a sensation, being low in sugar and calories, one of our top picks. Jane and I were hitting it off splendidly, whether in the kitchen or serving in the dining area. Around 3 months into our relationship, marriage discussions began, and on our cafe's first anniversary, we officially tied the knot. Grandma couldn't contain her tears of joy when we shared the news. Since then, the three of us have been residing in her home. She suggested we, as newlyweds, find our own place, but I find comfort and joy in staying here with her. Thanks to that decision, every day is filled with laughter. Here's to maintaining this happiness and harmony in our lives. If this video has helped you connect more with yourself and inspired you on your growth journey, take action and subscribe to the Vidasta Inspiration channel to discover more stories that will fill you with motivation and hope. I would love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment telling me how this story has impacted your life or what reflections it has left you with. And if you think this message can inspire someone you know, share it with your friends so they too can find inspiration and purpose in their lives.